Now let's talk about food. Why the hell not? It's getting towards lunchtime. Joe Warwick has written a book called The Ultimate Global Guide to Eating Out. He joins me now. And look, you've been looking at where the top chefs eat out. It's sort of like it's a guide to chefs' favourite restaurants. Is that the idea?
Yeah, it's called Where Chefs Eat, which is a bit of a Ron Seal title, and it's a guide to chefs' favourite restaurants. We've spoken to 650 chefs around the world. We've got around 4,500 different restaurants in it. And rather than just saying to them, what's your favourite restaurant, or what do you think is the best restaurant, we've asked them to pick restaurants for specific things across 8 different categories. So they pick breakfast places, late-night places, cheap and cheerful places, fancy places, places that they've noticed on their travels, places they wish they'd opened. And what I hope we've ended up with is a good international list that's a starting point if you go anywhere in the world, where you'll have half a dozen to a dozen places, depending on where it is, to start you off.
Now, are these, so there's 4,500, is that right, in the book?
Yeah, just slightly over 4,500, yeah.
So are these actually also, coincidentally, the 4,500 most expensive restaurants in the world?
No, they're not. I mean, I used to work on a thing called the World's 50 Best Restaurants, which was 50 of the world's most expensive and exclusive restaurants. This is a much more democratic approach. So there's everything from little beach shacks to simple little breakfast places to very fancy restaurants and lots in between. So definitely not. It's not just about expensive restaurants.
Because there is quite a bit of snobbishness around, isn't there, in the food industry? I mean, you pick it up when you're watching, chefs on TV shows. It's sort of like you almost, in some places you almost feel subservient to the chef. You're the one paying all the money.
Well, I think that's a very British thing, to get intimidated by chefs and waiters and stuff. And I don't think we should worry about it. And yes, of course, there's a lot of snobbery in everything, depending on who you talk to and where you're going. But there's also, a lot of people that are doing really nice, honest, accessible, affordable food. And those are my favourite places to eat. I like fancy restaurants as much as the next person that's really into restaurants, but most of my meals are in places that are a lot more accessible, a lot more affordable, and a lot more fun. I'm about fun dining, not fine dining.
Yeah, well, so am I. And it's funny how you use the expression, we were intimidated by the show. I don't feel intimidated. If somebody feels as though they're better than me because they just happen to be a good cook, I don't feel intimidated by them. I just think they've just got slightly twisted values, and I just feel like I see that quite a bit in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, I used to work in front of house in restaurants for a decade as well, and I think good service is about making people feel comfortable, making them feel welcome, and bad service is about making people feel uncomfortable, and i.e. they've got to spend so much money, or you're trying to force them to buy a wine they don't want, or you patronize them. So yeah, there's some of that going on, but I think our restaurant industry is improving. I think people are a lot more educated about food and drink, because it's a two-way thing. I think as a customer, you've got to learn more about what you're eating, and as a restaurant, you've got to explain a lot more about why what you're doing costs so much, because you're getting really good produce, because of all the time you're spending on it. The restaurant industry, people think restaurants make a lot of money, and some do, but the best restaurants, the profit margins are pretty narrow. If you look at the cost of utilities, if you look at the cost of rents, and the cost of produce, which is going up, we have to mention the B word, but all wine is bought in euros, most fish is bought in euros. So I'm not getting my violin out for the restaurant industry, but I think restaurants, it's a lot harder to make money out of restaurants than people perhaps think.
Yeah. So I love Indian food. So where in London is there what's top of the list from the chef's choice for Indian restaurants in London?
Well, Indian, or if we talk about the subcontinent, I mean the most recommended bargain place is not Indian, but it's Sri Lanka.
Yeah,
which is a place called Hoppers, which is in Soho, which does this thing called a hopper. So hoppers are kind of buckwheat pancake made into a bowl, which you have with a curry, and they put a lovely fried egg in the bottom of it as well. Other Indian places, I mean, we're blessed with fantastic Indian food here. There's a place called Gymkhana, which is really good on the fancy end of things in Mayfair, and Hoppers would be something that's a bit more affordable, and there's a lot in between. But yeah, Hoppers I would heavily recommend. I love that place.
Right, and what about if we're going away, if we want to go away for a holiday where a place where we're going to be able to eat out well, reasonably well, because I mean it's all about experience, isn't it? Where can we go out and give our taste buds something they haven't had before, perhaps?
Now, I'm a big, in terms of being affordable and it being interesting, although it takes a bit of work, I'm a big fan of Portugal, and of course everyone knows about Spain, but Portugal, I think, is the last really affordable place in southern Europe. And if you go to Lisbon and you go to Porto, you can eat incredibly well, you can drink fantastic wines and not spend a lot of money. I'd definitely recommend Portugal, but it takes a little bit of research because the language is a bit strange and you maybe won't know the grape varieties and the wines. But yeah, Portugal, I'd say, is fantastic. I also love Copenhagen, which is not as affordable with the rate of exchange, but you can eat very well there if you go for a weekend. Spain is still fantastic. You can still eat very well in across France, but again, more expensive. So I'd say, yeah, Portugal. Lisbon and Porto are great places to eat.
Right. Okay, we'll get a copy of this book because it's going to tell you all about that. One final question for you then. Why are chefs always men? You know, it's that the successful chefs are always men. Why is that?
Well, they're not always men. I think this is changing. We're starting to talk about the women that get ignored in the restaurant industry. I think I know men are a lot more pushy and better at promoting themselves. I think there is an obvious thing with women that they put their careers on hold to have children, and that knocks them back, not just in chefing, but in all sorts of other careers. So I think that needs to change, and we need to promote. There are a lot in this country anyway. There's a huge number of female chefs out there. We need to make kitchens nicer places to work in, make them less shouty. That's happening, and I think we're going to see a change. If you look over the next decade, I think that imbalance is going to be changed. I hope it's going to be changed.
Yeah. All right. Well, very good. Where are you going for lunch today then? Have you got that sorted? Do you eat out every day? That would be...
I try not to eat out every day, or I'd end up like the Michelin Man. Today, I'm just going to have a humble sandwich here because I've got some work to do. I'm eating out tonight. I'm going to a place called Black Axe Mangal, which is in Highbury Corner there, which does kind of Turkish food, sort of, with Szechuan peppers. Really great place.
Sounds good.
I'm going there tonight.
So I was looking forward to coming back to this country. I lived overseas for quite a long time. I was looking forward to coming back for the Indian food in Britain because it is so good. Yeah. But do you know what I've been really disappointed about? And I keep on fighting. I keep on hoping it's going to improve. Good old English fish and chips. I cannot find good fish and chips anymore. Where's it all gone?
There are some good places. I mean, I love the Rock and Soul place in Covent Garden. That's an old school one that's been there for a long time.
Right, good.
Kerbershire and Maltz are a nice little group of restaurants. They've got one in sort of Hammersmith Way, and they've got one in Ealing. They're really nice. So there is some good fish and chips. There's a fantastic place called the Golden Hind over in Marylebone. It's there, but you can have very disappointing fish and chips as well. So you need to find someone that's really caring about where they're getting their fish from and, got their oil at the right temperature and all of that. But, yeah, those would be the ones I'd recommend for some good fish and chips.
All right, okay, so look out for the book. What's the book called again?
So the book is called Where Chefs Eat, A Guide to Chefs' Favourite Restaurants. Easy place to find out more about it is the publisher's website, which is Phaidon.com, Phaidon spelled P-H-A-I-D-O-N for November.com. If you follow us on social media, the hashtag is Where Chefs Eat or at Where Chefs Eat, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Joe Warwick.
Right, there we are, all the information you need. Thank you very much. Thanks, Joe. You know what, when we started talking, I wasn't at all hungry. Now I'm starving. Thank God I can go and get something to eat in 10 minutes. It's Love Sports. Phil Dobby for the next 10 minutes.